tell, then you see the road. I'm to my soul into the size whenever the smoke clear out of my face and my picture perfect. Do it.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to Cypherfics. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the third part of, What If BEN10 Meets Powerpuff Girls? Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of man of cartoons on fanfictionnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. Mr. Boss watched with a smirk while his creation just eyed the whole situation. Bubbles was forced away from her friend despite her protests. When all hopes almost seemed lost for Ben, a flash of light emitted from him. The teen soldiers suddenly were pushed away by a mighty fire blast. Heat blast. Standing in Ben's place was a 9-foot-tall alien. His body composed of molten rocks and fire. The Omnitrix symbol stayed on his chest. The teen ninjas and other footmen stood, astonished at the sight. But nonetheless they stood ready to combat the alien before them. The alien hero walked towards Bubbles and broke the collar around her neck. The Powerpuff was relieved as she rubbed her neck to soothe the pain. Heat Blast turned away from his friend and faced his foes. Several teen ninjas began to surround him as they got about ready to attack the alien. The alien hero didn't care about what they could do. He sent a scowl on his face as his anger rose exponentially. You guys made Bubbles cry. Heat Blast yelled angrily, you tortured and belittled her to a helpless girl. Now I'm gonna make you all hurt and regret ever being a part of it. Attack! Cried the leader of the teen ninjas. Immediately, all teen ninjas charged at Heat Blast and began shooting at him. However, it seems to unfaze the hero as he just stood there. Once they were close, he swung his hand which released a huge blast wave of fire. Some of the teen ninjas were thrown to the ground while others jumped into the air to avoid getting hit. From the air, the teen ninjas came with a kick. But for each teen that came, Heat Blast got rid of them. He swats a few from his sight and then grabbed one by an ankle. Like a bat, he used that teen ninjas to hit other upcoming ninjas before tossing the ninja away. It was fortunate for some to land on their feet after getting hit, but couldn't be said for a few others. Heat Blast powered up a fireball and threw the fireball to the ground. That fire burst into flames and sent a huge wave of flame that took all of them down. Just when Ben thought things were over, he was proven wrong. A sole remaining teen ninja came and kicked him from the back, sending him flying a few feet away. Fortunate enough, he was able to do a flip on the ground and face his foe. The teen ninja stood straight. It was the same ninja he faced in the arts building. Heat Blast felt angry just to see her appearance, but watched as her face mask uncovered to reveal another face. Ben immediately knew her as the girl next to Chad that accompanied Mr. Boss on that night in the art place. Usually I deal with little BRTS, but I never thought I'll fight a fellow teenager. The teen snarled, you may have taken down my comrades but you can't take me down. I am Kree of the teen ninjas and I'll make you pay for intruding. Kree's mask covered her face once more and she attacked. She charged at Heat Blast and threw a punch at him. However, her fist got caught by the alien before she was then lifted off the ground by the neck. Heat Blast looked angrily at her with the hotness glare he could make, you're the one who's gonna pay. Bubbles worked so hard on those paintings and you stole them. Now I'm gonna make you feel hell on earth. Kree let out a loud scream as she went through the most painful thing she has ever experienced. Those that were conscious and not part of the fight like Mr. Boss, Bubbles, Father and the delightful children grimaced at the hot torture. By the time she stopped screaming she was sent flying around the room with her battle armor destroyed and the surface of her body almost burned completely. Now done with the teen ninjas, Heat Blast glared at Mr. Boss who stepped back in fear. The bald man quickly acted fast. Ice Cream Men, take him down. Suddenly Ice Cream Men jumped down from the ceiling. Their numbers were up to 5 and they had Heat Blast in the middle. Each of them held a hose which was connected to tons of ice cream somewhere in the base. They pointed it at Heat Blast and shot him with tons of ice cream. In a matter of seconds Ben was covered in ice cream. Ben! Bubbles cried out as she watched her friend. The Powerpuff Girl got up to fight when suddenly the ice cream began to bubble up from heat. It kept expanding until it finally exploded, resulting in splashing hot ice cream through the ice. When some of it got on the ground, it melted right through the ground in seconds. Unfortunately the ice cream men got hit by the splash and felt their skin burn. The 5 ice cream men screamed in pain as various parts of their body began to burn. My boss, the delightful children and Bubbles cringed from the sight as those men ran out from the room in pain. Heat Blast got up from a one-knee down position and got up. His flames still formed on his body, much brighter and devastating. He had a determined look on his face which was brighter than his own flames. Remember this, Mr. Boss. I'm not doing this for myself, I have no reason for that. But when you hurt my friends, when you make them cry, I won't dare hold back from taking you down. Taking a stance with his legs apart, Heat Blast brought his hands to his hands and began to form a fireball. While doing it, he kept talking, when all of this is over, I want Bubbles to never remember this again. If it means burning this entire base to the ground, then so be it. Bubbles admired his words. A single tear went down her cheek as she whispered with a warm smile, Ben. However, after standing there for too long, Father decided to speak up. He hadn't shown any fear or worry for his soldiers falling. He was as cold and cruel in hate, contrast to his power of fire. Mr. Boss. Father spoke calmly, maybe it's time you use your weapon. I couldn't say it better myself. Mr. Boss grinned. He looked at his creation and pointed at Ben, that boy is going to ruin everything I built for. Destroy him. As you wish, Dad. Experiment 13 bowed and flew off. No. Bubbles shouted and flew at her. Heat Blast kept charging up his fireball until he saw Experiment 13 coming at him. His former intention was to bring down the entire base in one fire blast, but upon seeing Experiment 13 he shot the ball at her. Unfortunately the girl flew through the big ball of fire like it was nothing and kicked him HRD on the chest. He hit the wall not behind him, but the force of the kick made him to crash almost through the wall. Like that wasn't enough, Experiment 13 came and began throwing powerful blows at him. Heat Blast kept getting hit as it felt like an eternal of beatings to him. The girl was powerful, even more powerful than Buttercup herself. The girl also used accelerated speed to make her punches stronger and faster. Fortunately Bubbles came and tackled the girl to the ground. Suddenly the Omnitrix made its usual sound and engulfed him in a bright green light. When the light died down, Ben lay in a much dented metal wall. Bubbles by the meantime had Experiment 13 on the ground. But she noticed that she won't be able to hold on forever. Ben. Bubbles turned her head to call her friend, Ben, you got to get up and destroy this place. Please, this place can't stand, but it isn't for me. The kids next door are good children who mean only good for kids everywhere. If this base keeps making Powerpuff Girls as weapons, it will be the end of all that they walked on. Please, Ben, I need you. Unfortunately, that moment, Experiment 13 threw Bubbles off and charged at Ben. However, Bubbles got to her feet and let out a sonic scream. It hit that girl at the back and sent her flying to a metal wall. Bubbles was just about to run to Ben's aid when she heard him mmm. The brown-haired hero sat up from the dented wall and smirked weakly at her. I'm on it. A little weakly, Ben to his feet and went to the Omnitrix, just keep that her away and be careful. Yeah. Bubbles nodded and flew off to fight. Ben watched her go and nodded back even though he knew she couldn't see it. He was glad that the strong girl in her was back. So while she was busy, he went through a list of aliens and came upon the hologram of Echo Echo. Come on, Echo Echo. Ben yelled and slammed the face of the Omnitrix down. The usual green light engulfed Ben's body as the transformation began. However, instead of growing shorter, Ben began to grow bigger and bulkier. His body became encased in a strong armor as his head formed into a helmet similar to Greek Corinthian. He also gained 2 ears similar to an armadillo, a grey tail and jackhammers on his elbows, wrists and hands. When the light died, Ben stood in a new different form. He had an appearance to that of a robot with yellow armor and armadillo ears. The alien hero held up his hands as he looked at his new form. He sighed, "Why do I even bother calling them out anymore?" Suddenly he got hit by a fireball. It didn't throw him off his feet nor did it do any damage to him. His armor ensured that the teen hero was protected from any harm. So when the blast came, he simply looked to his side and found Father standing there. The man of black had his entire body in fire. He held 2 fireball in his hands as he glared at Ben. "I've had enough of you, BRT. You better learn to obey your elders." "Dude, I never listen to my folks most of the time, so don't count for a second that I'll listen to you slash." Father became enraged and brought both hands together. He let out a huge fire blast intended to end Ben. However, the hero won't go down without a fight as he charged at the villain. Meanwhile, Bubbles was sent crashing through a metal wall and hit the floor hard. Experiment 13 came from flying through the hole and went to face the Powerpuff. For a short while now both have been fighting each other, though that could be said to be a lie. Despite only been born a while ago, Experiment 13 was far stronger than Bubbles could match up to be. The blonde Powerpuff Girl was just lucky she could keep up even though it was barely. Bubbles quickly rolled out of the way, just in time as Experiment 13 came stomping down. The ground shook just from the impact as her foot made a large foot-sized dent on the metal floor. The blonde Powerpuff Girl quickly got to her feet, a few distance away. "Please stop," Bubbles said in an urgent tone. "We're sisters. Don't you remember? You saved my sisters a few years ago, Bunny." Experiment 13 simply eyed the other girl with a determined face. "I don't remember any of that. Now stop stalling and face your doom." Before Bubbles knew it, Experiment 13 let out a sonic scream. It hit the ground hard and sent her flying through metal walls. She came to a stop as she hit the ground of a room with a loud thump. But despite it, she got up to her feet, which was a mistake. Experiment 13 came and let out an ice breath that encased the Powerpuff in ice. Bubbles got frozen entirely, allowing the girl to give her an uppercut that sent her flying through several floors. Bubbles reached the large room floor from earlier and hit the ceiling of it. Her ice-encased body shattered, freeing the girl but also allowing gravity to send her falling to the ground. However, Experiment 13 came out from the hole in the floor and backhanded the girl, sending her flying into a jet. Meanwhile, several workers within the base began to run for their lives. Though they have the means to fight, they didn't intend to cross fire in a fight between super-powered people. Someone activated the evacuation alarm, which was a huge help to clear out many in the base. Instead, the jet, Bubbles let out a weak mmm as her eyes opened. She looked around her and remembered all that happened. It would be a lie that at this point she wasn't afraid to even leave. Her eyes clearly showed her fear but also a burning determination. Experiment 13 clearly had the strength of all the Powerpuff Girls combined. Not only that, but she had the unique ability of each girl. However, Bubbles didn't let that stop her. She swallowed her fears and flew out of the jet to face the girl. However, once she got out, she was kicked at the stomach by a fast-moving Experiment 13. That sent her flying to the ground and making a dent on the ground. But she still got up, still determined to make things work out. Suddenly the jet she early crashed into was sent flying to her. Fortunately, Bubbles saw it coming and quickly grabbed it with her bare hands. It wasn't close to heavy thanks to her super strength, so she tossed it away. But she suddenly got punched to the face by Experiment 13, who came at her again. The Powerpuff was sent flying to the wall, hit the wall, making a human-sized dent on impact. Before Bubbles could escape, Experiment 13 came and began hitting her to powerful punches. Bubbles got seriously hit and felt every single blow from her. Fortunately she managed to overcome it and grab a fist. She caught Experiment 13 by surprise, just long enough to give her a strong head butt that sent her crashing to the ground. Bubbles then let out a battle cry as she flew at Experiment 13 with both her fists ready to come down on the girl. But as she came close, Experiment 13 took both fists with one open hard, which surprised Bubbles. That moment was enough for the other girl to send a quick kick to Bubbles' stomach, sending the Powerpuff Girl flying to the ceiling. However, Bubbles was able to regain control of her body while in the air. She quickly blocked a fast punch as Experiment 13 came at her. There was an opportunity to strike, but instead of taking it, Bubbles let go and flew backwards. Confused, Experiment 13 asked, "Why didn't you hit me back?" "I don't want to fight you." Bubbles answered, "We're sisters and we shouldn't be fighting each other. Please remember who you are, Bunny." "It's me, Bubbles." "Bubbles?" Experiment 13 muttered with a lost look. However, whatever chance she had of remembering was interrupted when the entire place began to shake. This didn't just happen at the particular room alone. The entire base began to shake like an earthquake just attacked. Tons of metal began to break apart as floors and walls began to collapse. Both fighters were confused until they heard screaming. Experiment 13 recognized that voice, "Dad." Bubbles felt heartbroken at that word, but watched Experiment 13 fly off to save him. She followed her from behind with no idea of what to do. When they got to the bottom floor from before, they found Mr. Boss stuck under a huge metal. Not too far was Ben using his current form that was the cause of the rapid earthquake on the base. His form had huge jackhammer hands which he planted on the ground in use. Everyone else in the place was already evacuated, whether they were injured or unconscious. The last to leave were the delightful children who were screaming as they carried an unconscious father through a door. A battle had clearly happened between Ben and father, and from the looks of it Ben emerged victorious against the villain. Experiment 13 spotted her father and quickly flew to him. Unfortunately, a chunk of metal fell from above her and knocked her to the ground. She easily pushed it aside but became a little dumbfounded to find Bubbles helping the old man out. "Hey! Put me down, you BRT." Mr. Boss struggled as he shouted ignorantly. Bubbles snarled, "Shut it and hold your breath. I'm getting us out of here." Mr. Boss became quiet, giving the Powerpuff Girl the piece to fly out through the base before it could all collapse. She should be worried for Ben, but knowing the teen, he likely had a plan to escape. By the time they got out, the entire base was completely destroyed. Outside of Townsville, Bubbles put Mr. Boss on the ground at the outskirt of the city, somewhere on the beach. The bald-headed man rudely pushed away from her and stood at the shores, looking at the open seas. Experiment 13 walked up to Bubbles, which the other girl took notice of. They looked at each other but said nothing as they felt awkward. But finally one of them spoke first. Thank you, Bubbles." Experiment 13 spoke. It was nothing." Bubbles said as a smile formed. "It was the right thing to do, even though he destroyed my paintings and made me fight with my sister." "Sister?" Experiment 13 was confused, so she asked, "Who is your sister?" "I didn't know you fought with her." Bubbles felt uneasy. She managed to swallow that down and said, "That sister is you." "Oh." Experiment 13 muttered and looked away. "Yeah." Bubbles muttered too. She felt like looking away, but upon seeing that the chance of getting Experiment 13 to remember came across her mind. So she forwarded her talking, "You and I are sisters. Your name is Bunny and you were the best thing that happened to me and my sisters. Some years ago, we created you and well, you weren't so perfect at first. But in the end you came through when we needed you the most. But sadly you exploded." Experiment 13 finished. "Wait, you remember?" Bubbles asked with a hopeful glee. Experiment 13 smiled warmly, "I do. Back when I got slammed by that chunk of metal, I got some glimpses of some things that I didn't know about. It had a little girl version of you, a red-haired and a brunette. I then realized that you're right, you really are my sister. A very warming smile spread on Bubbles' face. Her eyes became teary as she became filled with emotions. She couldn't hold it anymore, a chance to hold her sister. The same could be said about Experiment 13, who embraced Bubbles in a hug just as the Powerpuff did the same. Both of them had a happy moment of their own as tears of joy ran down their cheek. Unfortunately, that didn't last. What do you think you're doing? Mr. Boss yelled angrily. Both girls let go of each other and faced the bald man. He angrily marched his way to Experiment 13's face and growled at her, "You do not talk to her like that. She and that useless BRT ruined everything for me. Now I want you to destroy her, Experiment 13. No, I can't. Experiment 13 refused, and don't call me that anymore. Call me Bunny. Oh. Mr. Boss shot a glare at her. I see where this is going. Luckily I thought of something like this might happening. Before any of the girls could ask, Mr. Boss reached into his suit and held out a button. A dial was on its side which he set to the maximum, making Bunny's body to glow. The girl gasped as she looked around, her body glowing red hot. Bubbles became worried and snarled at the villain, "What did you do to my sister?" "Simple, I activated an electronic charge to unstable the chemical X within her DNA." Mr. Boss said calmly. Both girls gasped at the news. They were too frozen to think of what to do. Bunny's body began to glow brighter in red that it began to scare the girls more. Mr. Boss snickered as he turned to Bubbles, "I destroyed your paintings and you destroyed my work. Now I destroy your sister." Bubbles became angry at that exact moment. Her eyes snapped open in hatred and she picked the man up. It became even more intense as the man felt afraid upon looking into her eyes. "Stop it now or else I'll..." "Do what?" Mr. Boss interrupted her. Though scared, he still managed to speak, "You heroes don't kill. Or have you forgotten that?" Bubbles gritted her teeth in anger and threw him away without a second thought. That gave her the sight to see her sister reaching critical mass. Upon that, Bubbles became worried and afraid for her sister but could do nothing but watch her reach her end. "Please don't go," Bubbles whispered with tears. Bunny glanced at herself and closed her eyes. Tears fell through her eyelids as her mouth departed to say her last words. "Goodbye, Bubbles. I love you." With that the end came. Bubbles shielded her eyes as she feared the worst to happen. Bunny stood tense and waited for the end to come. At that exact moment, her whole life flashed before her eyes. It started from the very first time she was created, showed her adventures with the girls and finally her death. Then it continued to her resurrection and played through the entire experience she went through. Looking back at her sister, Bunny realized how happy she was to have seen her sister again even though it started out wrong and had to end. She let out a breath to relieve herself of the tension and accepted her fate. She then closed her eyes, as the end of her finally came. A tingly feeling sensation washed over her body and she took it that it will be her end. A moment of silence went by and nothing happened. However, none of the girls bothered to open their eyes. Mr. Boss was the only one watching with a gleeful smirk. But once he realized something was wrong, his smirk dropped. "What's going on here? You should be dead by now." "Huh?" The two sisters opened their eyes and glanced at each other. Bunny specifically held her hands to her face and stared at them. "I'm alive," she whispered, baffled at what is happening, "but how?" "That would be me." An electronic-like voice spoke out in the air. A bolt of blue electricity shot out of Bunny's head and began to materialize. The girl gasped while Bubbles watched as the strange being materialized to a blue jellyfish-like creature with 6 long tentacles that seemed to function as 2 pair of arms and legs. He had green eyes and white swipes on his body which resembled lightning streaks. A familiar hourglass tech rested on its chest. "Ben. Is that you?" Bubbles asked in a whisper tone. "Yep. The creature confirmed as two pair of his hands were up. Bubbles approached him. What did you do? Did you somehow save Bunny? Somehow. I totally did. If Ben had a mouth he would be smirking. Bubbles could tell from the tone of his voice that he was being his usual cocky self. It relieved her a little as Bunny then took a step the alien hero and asked the most obvious question on all of their minds. Please tell me, what did you do in my head? The brown-haired felt shy asking. Honestly, I'm not sure myself. Ben admitted as he then began to explain, this alien is so new to me, but it has good instincts that I functioned with. After I destroyed the base I wanted to go big chill and fly out of there intangible. But as you can see, the Omnitrix thought otherwise. But this alien came with a lot more than I thought. It could swim and make me phase through solid objects. So when I came back, I sensed some strange electronic charges and decided to investigate about. So by coming here, Bubbles said as she began to understand. You destroyed the electronic charges implanted in my head. Bunny finished. Upon saying that, a tear fell down her cheek as she smiled and wiped its remains away. Thank you. It was nothing. Ben shrugged. No. Mr. Boss growled angrily, you ruined everything. I swear I'll make you pay, Mr. Fenton. Ben glared at him and instantly hovered before him very fast. Two tentacles by his side wrapped about the villain's wrist, scaring him as Ben lifted him up to face him. The hero's eyes flashed very brightly as he casted a dark glare at him. I get it. You're mad, but do I care? No. Now you listen to me and I'll be brief. Mr. Boss nodded scared, allowing Ben to continue. Firstly, my name is Ben Tennyson. That name you shouted is a great honor to a close friend of mine and I don't like the tone you used it. Secondly, you'll stay away from the girl from here on out. If I see you or any one of your dumb goons come after her, I'll make things so bad for you that even the fire power from Heat Blast won't compare to it. Also and lastly, don't you ever hurt my friends. At the last part, Ben sent two of his other tentacles to shock Mr. Boss on the head. The bald villain cried out in pain before falling unconscious in seconds. Ben let go of him, allowing the man to fall on the sandy ground easily. Both girls were surprised at Ben's fury, but watched the teen turn to them. The glare on his face quickly wiped on his face as a friendly one replaced it. You know, I just thought of an awesome name for the two aliens I just used. However, Ben didn't get to continue as the Omnitrix finally reached its limit and changed him back to normal. Then before the hero knew it, he was tackled to the ground by two happy friends of his. All of them laughed hysterically as they joined the moment until Ben's eyes went to the skies and saw the appealing night skies. Wow, I never knew the stars could be so appealing. Ben whispered with an admirable glee in his eyes. He suddenly heard snoring and looked to his right to Bubbles sleeping soundly. After everything they've gone through, it was easy to understood that the young Powerpuff had worn herself out and fell asleep once the chance came. Upon seeing her sleep soundly, Ben wrapped his hands around her side in a friend's manner. He knew that if anyone saw him lying with two girls they would get the wrong idea. But he couldn't care the less about it since they all deserve some rest. The Omnitrix bearer smiled warmly as his eyes went back to the stars and processed all that happened. He realized he has come a long way of maturity ever since he began to his cross-dimensional travel through the multiverse, though he still habited his usual childishness as expected from him. However, his train of thoughts was interrupted when a voice called to him. Looking to his left, Ben found Bunny still awake. The girl's eyes sparked as she looked at the teen dreamily. Of course, Ben failed to notice this as even he felt tired from all the fights and tension. The stars look appealing. Bunny marched an innocent smile to her eyes. I can't thank you enough for helping my sister and saving him. Now I can finally live with them. The pause between her sentences was due to a soft yawn she let out. Though she has never slept before in her first and second life, she closed her eyes and snuggled up to Ben before sleeping off. Ben smiled warmly and put his hand around her like her did to Bubbles. From there he closed his eyes and slept off to a peaceful dream. The break of dawn finally approached as the sun began to rise from the horizon. That meant that many people were either groaning in their beds that they had to wake up or just grumbling as they got ready to start another day they rather spend in bed. At that precise time 2 familiar-looking girls and 1 turtle-like alien was flying above the city, heading back home in hurry. Bunny was clueless about it, so she had a huge smile on her face. Ben's current alien form was supposed to be Jet Ray, but the Omnitrix again changed him into an alien form he hasn't used for a while. It took him a short while to figure out that the alien could fly, though sadly not as fast as Jet Ray would. The turtle-like alien is green with 8 holes in his shell. He also has large flipper-like arms and stumpy legs. Its main power was wind attack, which could be used to send a powerful wind force or draw a target in its paths towards him. The alien was called Terra Spin. "Ah, men, we're so late," Bubbles said worriedly. "You don't have to tell me twice." Terra Spin muttered, though loud enough for the girls to hear, "Don't worry, I got a plan. Since we're taking Bunny with us, that should explain our disappearance last night." Bunny was flying in the middle of her sister and friend. She was confused at what they were talking about. Finally she decided to ask, "What are you two talking about? Why would you be in trouble for saving me?" Terra Spin explained, "I'm sorry to say this, but finding you was just coincidence. Bubbles snuck out last night for some arts thing going on. I saw her and followed her, which I might add became one heck of a night. But," Bubbles then spoke with a wide smile, "we fortunately got to meet you. I don't think it was coincidence. I believe it was faith." "Aw." Bunny smiled happily. "Well, I hope fate saves our butts from getting grounded. If not, I'm gonna kick its butt after this," the turtle-like alien said in an irritated tone. Soon they arrived at the very front of the White House. The 3 landed on the ground simultaneously and Terra Spin changed back to human after shifting back to his humanoid turtle form. Quietly they went to the door as Ben was the first to open the door and stuck his head out. It was dark and quiet, which made the brown-haired to sigh in relief. "Thank you, fate," he muttered to himself before turning back to the girls. "The coast is clear. It's a little dark, but we can do with that." Both girls complied as Ben then walked in first with Bubbles following right behind and Bunny a few steps away. However, upon stepping a foot in, Bunny's enhanced hearing heard something which made her to stay in one spot. It was too late for Ben and Bubbles as they were suddenly tackled from somebody above them. Suddenly the lights turned on and showed Blossom standing at the living room entrance. She had a stern and firm look on her face as she casually walked towards them. Holding the 2 teens in down on the ground was Buttercup, who stood on them. Buttercup had a huge grin widely as her hands were on her peach. "Ah. Caught you 2 red-handed. Waking up early was so worth it." Blossom finally stopped in front of the 2 and casted her stern glare at them. "Ben, Bubbles, what were you 2 doing out so late? It's dangerous to be out like that, so you better have a good reason." "I can explain." Ben let out a small groan. Buttercup's weight on him was hurting his back. He managed to move his head back and shouted, "Bunny, get here quick. Buttercup is killing my boy's spine." "Bunny?" Both Buttercup and Blossom glanced at each other confused. Finally stepping into the house, Bunny stood in the view of everyone. Buttercup and Blossom were shocked as their eyes lay on the once thought to be dead sister. "Wait, is that really you?" Blossom asked, her voice sounding surprised. "Yes, it's her. Now get Buttercup off my back," Ben cried out from his position. Buttercup snapped out of her previous state and sent a knuckle down on Ben's head. "Shut it." "Okay." Ben groaned as anime tears ran down his eyes. It took some time before Blossom and Buttercup came to terms that Bunny was really alive. The moment was filled with joys of happiness as the brunette and red-haired tackled their brown-haired sister in a hug. That gave Ben and Bubbles the chance to actually get up and see the professor standing at the kitchen entrance with a shocked look on his face. Everyone was soon in the kitchen and began to discuss about Bunny. The brown-haired teen sat at the round kitchen table with a cup of tea in her hands which she would sip once in a while. Professor knew about the girl's existence ever since one night his daughters came crying about something some years ago. He never thought he would lay eyes on her for the first time after knowing about her, but there she was. Blossom, Buttercup and Professor sat at the table with the girl while Ben and Bubbles stood at a wall. The two teens in trouble watched as everyone's attention was drawn to Bunny. "I got to say, it's good to see you again, Bunny." Blossom smiled once again at her sister. Buttercup nudged the red-haired, "You keep saying that. Say something else for once." The professor then spoke up to avoid any trouble from coming. "So, Bunny, how do you feel after what you went through? I'm willing to try out some tests to ensure that the chemical X in you is stable. It's quite outstanding that you made it back with your memory and with a more human-like form like the girls." "I know." Bunny giggled happily as she sipped the cup of tea. From where they stood, Ben couldn't help but smirk. He was very happy that Bunny finally united with her family after a long time. He was even more happy that they weren't in trouble. "This is perfect. With Bunny here, we're not goners anymore," Ben exclaimed quietly enough for Bubbles to hear. "Oh yes you are." Buttercup laughed with a grin on her face. She and the others were now facing them. Before Ben could say anything about that, Buttercup pointed to her right ear, "Be careful when you say that around a bunch of superheroines with super hearing." Ah! Suddenly the door knocked, which made Ben and Bubbles to perk up. The blonde quickly ran off in a flash of blue blur. "I'll get it. I'll go with her in case she, needs to do something with the door." Ben nervously excused himself before running off after the girl. Approaching the door, Bubbles held the knob and opened the door. She was met with a familiar sight which made her to smile warmly and hug the person instantly as she let out an excited shriek. Ben stood with a confused look on his face. Who's the four eyes?" Ben asked. Letting go of the person, Bubbles turned to Ben with the usual smile and then to the person, "I'll like you to meet Ben. Ben, this is Dexter." The person finished off from Bubbles. Upon looking at the teen, Ben had one word for the teen. The person he was looking at stinks of nerdness, in Ben's own words. He wore a lab coat that was buttoned at the top, while also revealing a blue shirt underneath. He wore purple gloves and had square glasses which made him have a keen superior intelligent look that Ben has seen on Jazz Fenton in some occasions. Lastly he wore dark blue pants and black shoes. The teen genius eyed Ben from his feet up before approaching him. Before Ben could react, the teen held up his left hand and lay his eyes on the green watch on his wrist. "Amazing workmanship I see." Dexter stated fairly, "This superior device holds great technological advancement that surpasses other weapons I've come across. Unfortunately it comes with many faults, such that I expected. I predict you haven't fully mastered it." "Let go." Ben snarled as he forced his hand out of Dexter's grip. He then pointed that same hand at Dexter, "Look, I don't really know who you are, creep, but you better." Ben was interrupted as Dexter held his hand again and eyed the Omnitrix. The brown-haired hero got angry and forced his hand back. "Oh, now you're in for it," Ben stated harshly and went to the Omnitrix. An alien hologram popped up before he slammed the watch down. He was then engulfed in a flash of green light that faded away quickly to reveal his alien form. Swampfire. His alien was mainly just a humanoid plant alien that was about 10 feet tall. Dexter glanced upon the new form and pushed back his glasses in reflex. His face expression didn't change much except his eyes became skeptic. "Fascinating," the teen genius simply said. Before Dexter could react, Swampfire picked him up by his lab coat collar and held him up close to his face. "What's the big idea, for eyes?" "Ben, put him down," Blossom's voice shouted from behind. Looking back, Swampfire saw Blossom, Buttercup and Bunny standing at the kitchen door. The red-haired Powerpuff flew from her sisters and hovered in front of the teen hero. "I said put him down," Blossom scolded harshly. Buttercup laughed hilariously as she crossed her hands across her chest with a smirk on her face. She finally came over it. You hurt her, Ben. We don't want you to hurt her boyfriend. Boyfriend? Swampfire exclaimed in shock as his eyes grew wide. Suddenly the Omnitrix made its usual beeping and changed Ben back to normal in a flash of green light. Fortunate for Dexter, he landed on his feet like nothing happened. He simply shifted his glasses in reflex and glanced at Blossom. It's a pleasure seeing you again, Blossom. I see Buttercup is still in her juvenile words as ever. Hey! You take that back, geek face. Buttercup snapped at him. Blossom ignored what her sister said and smiled at him warmly. Likewise, Dexter. It's been a long time since we saw each other. Ah yes, I'll admit that the years have passed since our nemesis was fouled. Hold on, nerd brain. Ben interrupted rudely. You come in here and start looking at the Omnitrix. Now you act like you never invaded my personal space. The Omnitrix? Dexter questioned upon looking at the watch on his face. So that's what the alien device is. The word, omni, means all. I guess that explains the alien transformations you have, but not why you call out names you obviously came up with. Hey! Ben snarled, don't be so weird. I didn't ask for a living encyclopedia. Huh, you know that word, Benjamin? I'm surprised considering your grades in school are so poorly. If Ben wasn't angry before Dexter made his remark, he certainly was now. The brown-haired hero went to the Omnitrix, which made the faceplate to pop up. An alien hologram of Humongosaur displayed. He then held his hand above the watch. You're so getting a takedown for this. Ben! Blossom yelled and held the boy's hand. That's enough. Dexter didn't mean to get on your bad side. Isn't that correct, Dexter? The question was directed to the teen genius. Dexter simply shrugged his shoulders a little as response. Ben still eyed the red-haired teen and forced his hand out of Blossom's grip. He let out a small growl before walking away, letting Blossom and Dexter to talk. The red-haired heroine let out a breath of relief. There was a difference between annoyance and anger when it came to Ben. If the teen was angry over something really necessary, there will be nothing that could stop him once he acted. That's why Blossom intervened. As much as she secretly loved Dexter, even though she denies it when it was brought up, she knew Dexter was wrong to invade Ben's personal space. Crossing her arms across her chest, Blossom casted an authority glare on Dexter. As much as I mean like seeing you here, I want to know why you did that to Ben and is up this early in the morning. Of course. Dexter replied as he began to explain, I'm a scientist and as such I deserve to observe some outcomes that may befall our world. So ever since Benjamin came, I've been watching him to conclude what his intentions are, like the battle with Princess and last night when Bubbles and Ben snuck out to an art painting auditorium which led to them finding Bunny. Wait. Blossom halted Dexter and turned to Ben and Bubbles with a scowl. So that's what you two went to do. It was her. Ben nervously said as he pointed at Bubbles. I just followed her and things played out. Bubbles let out a scolding look that scared Ben to shift a foot away from her. Blossom simply shook her head disappointedly and turned back to Ben. Thanks for letting us know. We were wondering where those two went. But this doesn't excuse what you did. Ben is a great friend of us and has been with us for a while now. I really trust him and so does the other girls and my dad. I know. But precautions had to be made. Dexter defended himself. That's why I request that Benjamin comes with me so I may conclude to one of my precautions. I ain't going anywhere. Ben yelled. You got that right. Blossom furrowed her glare at him. Bubbles, and you have a lot to explain about your little night out. Ben's eyes grew wide as he realized he was in trouble. He let out a small sigh as he then grew a cheesy smile. Blossom and Dexter locked their skeptic look on the brown-haired boy as he slyly walked to Dexter and put his arm around the teen genius. Did I say I won't go? I meant I would love to go with him. Blossom and Dexter ignored the urge to roll their eyes from Ben's ridiculousness. There were more pressing matters that Dexter needed to attend to, so he held out a paper with some typed in words and spoke to the girls generally. I know the matter with Bunny still needs to be resolved considering she just came back. It would be a shame if she has to stay back home while you girls head off to school. That is why I acquired permission from your school to give you girls a free 3 days from your learning institution. Before the red-haired knew it, Buttercup rushed fast at him and snatched the paper as she passed by. The girl grew a wide grin as she read the typed words on the paper before throwing it in the air and exclaiming out loud, "No school." Blossom shook her head at the stupidity and glared at Dexter. "You did this just so you could get Ben to come with you, didn't you?" "Partially true," Dexter acknowledged, "but really I did this because I care about your connection with your sister. Believe me, I know how devastating it would be like to miss a sibling, though not for a long extent like you girls have." "Thank you." Blossom blushed a bit. "Oh." Everyone else in the room said in unison and smirks on their faces. "Shut it." Blossom snapped at them, that was completely unexpected. "Well duh, that's what most blushes are." Bubbles giggled. Everyone except Dexter erupted into a moment of laughter. Blossom had nothing with say as her cheeks became redder, even as she covered her cheeks and turned away. Fortunately for her, Ben intervened. "Well, that was fun and all, but Dexter and I got to go," Ben said as he made the faceplate of the Omnitrix to pop up while his arm was still around Dexter. A familiar alien hologram displayed before he slammed the face down. When the usual green light disappeared, standing in Ben's place was a humanoid velociraptor. He has black wheels under his feet, wears a helmet with a visor and a tail that has 5 blue stripes. He wore a black and white jumpsuit with the Omnitrix symbol on his chest. "Since that's out of the way," Ben said as he carried Dexter off his feet, "we'll be off." If anyone wanted to say anything to him, they couldn't because Ben ran out the door in a flash. A moment of silence took the air as all eyes were at the door until one of the girls spoke. Buttercup smirked. "He's still in trouble, isn't he?" "Yep," Blossom replied. A fast white and blue blur ran past the sidewalks of Townsville. It went so fast that time slowed down, making it almost impossible to spot who it was. The blur finally came to an empty alley as it dropped Dexter down and changed back to reveal Ben as the blur. Dexter stumbled a bit as he tried to find his footing. Ben had taken him off guard before he was ready. He smiled a little, though not plain to show, as he stood in front of the human changeling. "Okay, we're out. Now spill," Ben said with a minor angry look. Dexter simply turned sideways and shifted his right sleeve upwards to reveal a small blue wristwatch. "Very well." As the teen genius pressed a button on the watch, immediately, a shot of blue light shot from the skies and engulfed the two. The next time they appeared, Ben found him in a place he has never been before. There were metal blue walls with different machineries lying all around. Ben gawked in surprise at all of it. "You like?" Dexter smirked at the brown-haired. Ben quickly shook his head rapidly to get rid of the wide impression he had. He stopped and then smug a little, "Maybe. So where are we and why did you bring me here?" Dexter didn't reply, though he walked to a huge supercomputer and typed a few words. He then looked back at Ben with a serious face. "We're in DexLab's HQ, somewhere in Los Angeles." The screen behind Dexter displayed a map of America and showed a small dot of Los Angeles, indicating their location. Dexter then continued, "Originally I had another in New Jersey, but the robot fights there ruined it again." "Robot fights?" Ben questioned. "Never mind that, we have more situations to handle," Dexter said as he then did some commands the computer. Suddenly Dexter and Ben were engulfed in a flash of light as they were teleported away again. This time they appeared in what looked like above the skies at night time. While Dexter was calm, Ben screamed and began to flail his hand in a way that would happen if he was falling. Dexter slightly face-palmed before he then slapped Ben on the cheek. "Be quiet," Dexter snapped. "We're not really in the skies. It's still daytime right now." "Oh," Ben whispered as he touched his red cheek. Sorry about that." Dexter nodded, apologize he accepted. Now to the matter at hand. So where are we really? We're in a holographic room from a footage that one of my satellites picked up. Right now it's showing us where Townsville is. Okay. So is that how you were able to watch us like a creep? Ben furrowed his eyes accusingly. A creep? No, as a researcher. Yes. Ben had nothing else to say as he rolled his eyes. Obviously Dexter saw little about the wrongs he was doing. But really the teen genius knew it was wrong, but he had to be cautious about it. Ben didn't realize it, but Dexter was right to do what he did. It's never a good feeling to know that a being from another universe crosses into your own world. The Omnitrix wearer didn't see that because he has been crossing through different worlds. Dexter simply ignored the glare Ben was giving him as he turned his back from him. Suddenly a huge flying spaceship flew right through Ben. The brown-haired let out a shriek as his eyes watched the ship fly right through them. He pants a little and looked back at Dexter. What the heck was that? Dexter looked back with a skeptic look. That's Dimension Doomsday. I believe you've encountered the MSTR of it. Yes. Nefarious. Ben growled silently upon remembering who the villain is. Dexter nodded, exactly. An hour before you arrived, an unknown man named Nefarious sent probes all around the world. Unlike you, I was actually after him and observed what his intention is. Hey! I've been chasing that guy. Ben snarled angrily. Really? Dexter became more skeptic. Then tell me this, Benjamin. Did you know he has been distracting you ever since you arrived in this world? What? Ben muttered in shock. Exactly. Dexter confirmed, while you and Buttercup disappeared, Nefarious increased his search probes all around the world. However, this is just a theory, but I strongly believe it is true. Ben balled his fist and tightened it. He felt so much rush of anger, which clearly showed on his now strained face. If Dexter's theory was right, then Samurai Jack's sacrifice was all for nothing. He hated everything that Nefarious has done, but much more he was angry that he hasn't actually been on the lookout for the man responsible for so much of his friend's suffering and pain. Ben! Dexter called out to him. The Omnitrix wearer snapped his head to attention with a lost face. Looking around, he found that he was now in a plain white room. Dexter stood at the wall side, facing him. We have work to do. Dexter stated right away. An entrance slide opens next to Dexter, allowing the teen to walk in. Ben let out a breath to release some stress before running after Dexter. Upon getting in, he found they were in a hexagon-shaped room with blue walls. Dexter stood at the middle of the room until a huge column rose from underneath him and held him up 15 feet in the air. Hey, what are you doing? Ben shouted to the teen. Getting ready. Dexter said as he stood with his eyes ready, I expect that you've remembered the dangers of Nefarious. Sadly, I don't have much information on him yet. Suddenly mechanical hands stretched from the walls with metal parts on him. A metal hand took Dexter's lab coat while the others began to apply the metal parts on Dexter. Ben watched, a little mildly confused at what Dexter referred to and what was going on. A white cape with a blue D insignia was placed on his back. The rest of the metal was put on him, creating an armor for the teen genius. When it was all done, Dexter jumped from the high place and stomped down on the ground with no difficulty. Some cracks formed upon his feet hitting the ground, but that wasn't his concern. Wow! Ben awed at Dexter's armor. Dexter's armor was mainly white with blue stripes. The blue stripes ran from his feet and went all to his chest. The same blue stripes also came from the palm of his hands and went to the chest as well. At each of the palm of his hands were repulsor units which would shoot energy blasts through them. Then a orb-like energy contained in a thick glass was placed on his chest. Time to infiltrate Dimension Doomsday. Dexter stated right away. An hour later a lone jet with the Dex Labs insignia flew above Townsville. However, it soon vanished from sight as it went into stealth mode. The inside of the jet composed of 2 seats which were for the pilot and co-pilot. There was also the cargo bay which consisted of seats by the side and a wide space between them. Ben was sitting at the cargo bay with a bag around his shoulder. Upon looking at it, Ben had a moment of silence as he felt emotional about it. The bag was the same item that he acquired from his friends back in Danny Phantom's universe. Timmy Turner then had his fairies make it a bag with a pocket dimension so that way he never has to use another bag in case the current one was filled. Inside the bag were ghost weapons that the Fentons gave to him. At first he didn't think he would need them, but after seeing that Nefarious was still involving the ectoplasm beings in his path of evil, Ben thought otherwise. It also had a few weapons that he took from the Teen Titans and a sword from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Usually he wouldn't need the bag for his adventures, seeing that he always had the Omnitrix. But because they were going to infiltrate Nefarious's HQ, Dexter told Ben he has to deactivate the Omnitrix. It turns out that the alien watch could easily be tracked by its energy signatures, which will make a successful infiltration hard. The Omnitrix bearer put his hand into the bag and brought out a couple of waist belts. They were white with green stripes and had a dial at the middle of it. Ben remembered it well as the Spectre Deflector. Again, he reached into the bag and brought out more items for the passing time. For each one he brought out, he put them down on the floor until he was sure he got what he and Dexter needed. Earlier, the brown-haired hero had told Dexter about the weapons he possesses and thought they could use it. Dexter agreed, knowing that it will be dumb to go in there unprepared. After a few minutes later, Ben looked to the cockpit of the jet where Dexter was piloting. "Hey, nerd face. Come and check what I got here." Dexter groaned a little from frustration. Apparently Ben has found it fun to call the teen genius by names even though he wasn't mad at him anymore. It kind of reminds him of Buttercup. Shaking the thoughts away, Dexter set the jet at autopilot and walked to the other teen. He saw the items on the ground and was about to speak but got interrupted when Ben put the Spectre Deflector around his waist. "What is this?" Dexter yelled as he pushed Ben away from him. The brown-haired hero didn't take it offensively as he answered, "That is the Spectre Deflector. As long as we wear them, no ghost can overshadow us or touch us." He then put the Ecto belt weapon around his waist and handed a green and white wrist gun to him. "That is the Ecto wrist gun. Ghosts can't be infected by normal weapons, that weapon will help." Dexter nodded as he understood what he was referring to. A small metal stick lay on the ground which Ben took and enlarged it by gripping it hard. The brown-haired hero then twirls it around his sides and above him with his right hand before stomping the bottom on the ground. "I still got it." Ben grinned. "Very well, Benjamin. Time to suit up," Dexter said. Another few minutes passed by as both teens got ready. By the time they were gone, they were almost ready to go. Dexter had re-equipped the Ecto wrist gun into his armor while the Spectre Deflector was now white and blue on the waist. Ben stood prepared as he stood suited up. His green jacket was gone, leaving him with only his black shirt and blue pants. He had a Spectre Deflector around his waist and an Ecto wrist gun on his left wrist. Since the Spectre Deflector was a belt, Ben was able to put a grappling hook, an Ecto WHP, his bow staff, a few of Robin's birdarangs and some other small weapons. Now the only thing keeping them from being fully prepared was the Omnitrix. Ben eyed the device on his wrist with a worried expression. There was a glint of fear in his eyes that made him fear if he should shut down the watch. It won't be like he won't be able to activate it again, but the boy still feared for his life and Dexter as well. The Omnitrix bearer let out a sigh and held the watch to his mouth. "Omnitrix deactivate code, 000, deactivate, 0. Voice command recognized, code initiated." A male voice from the Omnitrix spoke, "Are you positive you wish for deactivation?" Ben hesitated. He began to think it over until he sighed again, "Yes. Deactivate." The Omnitrix beeped once and let out another sound as the usual green light went off. To be sure that it was deactivated, Ben tapped the faceplate and nothing happened. He looked at Dexter with a little uneasy look. "It's deactivated now." "Good." Dexter nodded, now let's go. Dexter's jet came to a halt in the air. It stayed like that for a short time until a beam shot from the pointy tip of the jet. Inside of going through the air, it made a small sound as it came in contact with metal. Suddenly a small dash of red formed in the air. Dexter and Ben then came up on top of the jet and saw what the beam hit. Like I predicated, Nefarious' ship is cloaked. Dexter stated, a little proud that he was right. Ben rolled his eyes as he held his hand out to Dexter, let's just get in there, smarty pants. A small anime nerve pop on his forehead as he casted a small glare at the hero. Nonetheless, he took the teen's hand and leaped into the air. He hovered in the air due to the electronic pulse under his boots which allowed him to take him and Ben to the exposed back to Dimension Doomsday. Suddenly his suit became intangible, making him and Ben to be able to fly through it. Once inside, Dexter let go of Ben and threw two small circular discs. They flew around each other for a while until they clamped on the walls at their sides. Ben looked at Dexter confused, considering that the hall they were standing was deserted. Relax. Dexter said. Obviously the teen genius knew what Ben was worried about. I sent an electronic magnetic pulse charge that cancels any electricity-powered field within the vicinity, except the lights and flight engines within this part. What? Ben blinked with a confused expression. Dexter scoffed, I shut down any way we can be detected. Now come on. We have to stealth our way to the control room. It's gonna take half an hour before they realize we're here, so we better hurry. Ben nodded in understanding. He and Dexter then began walking down the hall in their search for the place. Dexter held an iPad that showed a diagram map of the ship. Ben didn't know how the teen genius had obtained a full map of the huge ship, but considering Dexter had been watching nefarious activity, he figured he must have gotten the map of his ship during his observation. Suddenly huge footsteps approached them from the corridor at their left. It was right in front of them and both teens became alarmed. Dexter spotted a door at their right and quickly ran to it while holding Ben's hand. The door slides open just in time, allowing them to run in and avoid getting spotted. At the other side of the door, both teens had their ears at the door as they listened to the footsteps. They heard it become louder and become less as whoever that had those huge footsteps was gone. Both then let out a sigh of relief. That was close. Ben said. Dexter only nodded at him and looked at the room they were in. He nudged Ben's shoulder and pointed at what he saw. The Omnitrix wearer looked around and became wide-eyed at what they saw. The room was entirely huge with containment pods held on the wall with strange creatures in them. The containment pods were in rows. Both boys looked at each other at the same time before looking away and walk. They eyed the pods in awe at the sights that they saw in them. From looks of it they were combination of different animals. Like for example, Ben saw in a pod that contained a creature that had the part of a horse from its waist it down while from the top was a locust. Yikes. This gives me the creeps. Ben muttered as he shuddered. He looked at Dexter and asked, do you think Nefarious is making a mutant army? Positive. Dexter confirmed as he continued to speak, however we don't know why and how he acquired such a perfect combination. Some of them seem to be in hibernation while the rest seems incomplete. Ben noticed something at the corner of his eyes. All the pods were filled with a strange chemical liquid that reminded Ben of something he has seen before. Dexter realized what Ben was doing and drew closer without saying a word. Then finally it came to Ben. Mutagen. Ben whispered. What? Dexter questioned. Ben looked back at him with a bright look, it's mutagen. I saw this back when I was in another universe. I met a group of mutated teenage mutant ninja turtles and fought with them for a night. While I was there, one of them named Mikey told me about an alien race from another dimension called the Krongs and some other stuff about them. I recall he showed me that same goop from the tank pods we see. No surprise there. Dexter said skeptically, from the looks of it, Nefarious is planning an invasion. Aren't you the smart one? A female voice with an Eastern European accent spoke. Both boys became alert as they noticed a huge shadow casted over them. Quickly they jumped back just in time as a huge gloved fist hit the ground. A normal-size female then landed on the ground as she retracted her giant fist into a normal hand. Upon looking at her, the female had a foreigner's face. She has short brunette hair, blue eyes and red lipstick on her lips. She also wore a sleeveless red shirt with a black and white stripe around her waist. She also wore a red pants with black boots that reached to her knees. "Who the freak are you?" Ben yelled. Rather than answer his question directly, the woman spoke, "I've heard about you, BEN10. You allied yourself with the Teen Titans and fought greatly to save the world. So since you wish to know my name, you may as well." The woman smirked, "I am MDM Rogue and this is the end of the line for you and your comrade. If anyone could take back what happened some minutes ago, Ben would be the first. It hasn't been long since he faced MDM Rogue and Dexter disappearance. Now he was walking aimlessly through different places in search of any sign of Dexter. So far he hadn't seen anything other than guards and a few villains he had seen in other universes. Taking a break, he sat on the ground with his back on a wall. Crud, I really hate this. Maybe I should use the Omnitrix and just find Dexter. Wildmutt or XLR8 should be able to do that quickly." Suddenly a sound caught his attention. He quickly got up and ran for a door as it opened when he got close. When he went into the room he sighed with relief and pressed a button that shut the door. Then he slides his back on the door and sat on the ground. Stupid spaceship. He muttered to himself, at least things can't possibly get worse. His eyes then flew wide. Ah crud, I just jinxed myself. Ben looked around him to ensure he was alone. It was actually dark except for a small light above him. Cautiously he went to the light SWCH and flipped it on, allowing the rest of the light to come on. All that he could see was a chair and someone sitting on it. The person was a girl with dark hair and wore clothing similar to that of an alien princess Ben knew of. The girl had her face down on the ground, but Ben could spot a grin on her face. Finally she spoke, "It's been a long time, Tennyson." "I know that voice," Ben said with a stern look. He had the look at her. "I didn't think I'll get to see your dumb face again, Blackfire." The girl snickered. She raised her head up enough for Ben to see. She then stood up and balled her fists, charging them with purple energy. "I see you haven't changed that mouth of yours." "Right, because you're the right person to say that." As he looked at Blackfire more he noticed that her grin never dropped. That only meant one thing. "This is a trap, isn't it?" The brown-haired teen concluded. "Wow, smart and skilled." Blackfire said, not amused, "Tell me, did Robin give you all that?" "None of your business." Ben yelled at her, "Now get ready for a but whooping 'cause it's hero time." As Ben said it, he just about slammed the watch even though it was still deactivated. But then a square hole opened underneath his feet, sending him falling into it. Blackfire approached the hole with a smirk. Her eyes looked down at the hole as she heard his screams going faint. She then tapped a Bluetooth in her ear and spoke, "He's heading your way, just like you wanted." "Good." The voice responded with a calm tone, "I'm ready for him." By the meantime Ben kept falling. He kept slamming the watch in an attempt to change when it then occurred to him that he can't. The vent sending him down was not too wide and made especially to contain one person. Ben attempted to stop by holding on to the side, but it was useless. His palms ended up getting burned. Ow! 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 He screamed and withdrew his hands back. The brown-haired hero looked then to see that below him was light at the end. It didn't take long before he found himself about to hit the ground. Fortunately, his feet landed on the ground safely, though with a price. "Ah, my foot." Ben ended up hopping with one foot in his hand while the other foot hopped. He switched from another and kept going until he fell on the ground on his butt. Before he could consider thinking of where he was, a voice spoke up. "I see you finally made it, Tennyson." "Huh?" Looking forward, Ben found he was in a strange room. There were square blocks floating at places inside of the room. In fact, the room was so huge that they were also huge pillars. As Ben got to his feet, someone else landed a few feet away. Ben made contact with the person as his mind recognized who it was. His eyes shot a glare at him as his teeth gritted while his fists tightened. Nefarious. True to who he saw, it was indeed nefarious. The evil being still wore a dark cloak over his body. The only part of his body that was shown were his hands and mouth. So upon hearing his name, the villain's lips changed to a smirk. Good to see you again, Ben Tennyson. At the Utoniums, things have been going well since Ben and Dexter left. The girls decided to concentrate on educating Bunny on normal life before getting her to school. However, that proved to be easier said than done. An argument had emerged between Buttercup and Blossom about what to do. The red-haired suggested the library while Buttercup suggested the beach. So the argument went on. Bubbles groaned as she bowed her head down. I knew this was gonna happen. What was gonna happen? Eep! Bubbles shrieked. She scooted away before looking at who sat beside her. Oh, it's just you, Bunny. Well, of course it's me. Who else will it be? The brown-haired girl smiled, oblivious as usual. No one. Anyway, do you want to go to the mall? A mall? Bunny muttered as she tilted her head in confusion. Oh right, you don't know that. Well, I guess that should be a start for you. As Bubbles said that, she got up and rushed to the kitchen in a flash. She peeked through the entrance and saw as Blossom and Buttercup were arguing at the kitchen table. The professor was trying to calm them down but was failing at it. So by seeing all that was happening, Bubbles sighed and rushed back at Bunny. Alright, let's go. Bunny nodded and stood up. That's great and all, but shouldn't we tell our sisters? Oh, don't worry about that. The girls argue like this for hours. We should be able to get back without them noticing. Alright. If you say so. I do say so. Bubbles replied with an assuring look. Moments later, both girls flew out of the house. They went up to the skies, enjoying the breeze, and having fun by spinning around each other. Eventually they got to the mall, where they landed on the ground in front of the entrance. None of the people there were surprised when Bubbles landed, but their eyes suddenly went on Bunny. Whispers soon spread as everyone watched the two Powerpuff enter. It didn't stop there though. More murmuring went into the building as many people were surprised to see a girl that looked like Bubbles in some way. It didn't go unnoticed by the girls due to their enhanced hearing. Bubbles, why are they talking about me? Bunny managed to ask as she kept a low voice. Oh. Bubbles dropped her head. I totally forgot that you'll be noticed. What does that mean? The blonde Powerpuff looked at her sister. Everyone in Townsville is used to our sisters and I coming here, but they've never seen you before. And that didn't occur to you before we got here? Yes. Baka. What was that? Nothing. Bunny quickly said. She directed her eyes away from her sister and saw something that caught her attention. Oh look, a distra, I want to go to that store. Before Bubbles could say anything, Bunny grabbed the blonde's wrist and pulled her away. She ran to the store really fast as her dragged sister was pulled into the air. When she came to a stop, she let go on Bubbles, which made her to hit the ground. However, Bunny didn't seem to mind that as her eyes turned into hearts. A little help please. Bubbles said. She didn't receive a response, which annoyed her as she got up by herself. She shot a glare at her sister. What's the big deal, Bunny? Huh? Bunny said absent-mindedly. Her heart eyes were gone. Bubbles only huffed as she looked at what Bunny was staring at. It turned out to be a poster with a picture of a guy and a girl kissing each other. The couple's background had a huge heart with an arrow crossed through the center. You dragged me all the way because of this? Bunny didn't reply as her eyes were glued on the poster. Her own eyes saw her in the place of the girl and the man as Ben. Once she realized what she was seeing, she shook her eyes. She then turned to her sister. "Did you see Ben and me on that poster?" She asked and giggled, "So weird." Bubbles gave her an uneasy look, right. "Bunny, do you by any chance like Ben?" "Well, yes. He's a good friend of mine, a handsome friend." "No. I mean if you have a crush on him." "Why would I want to crush him?" "Ugh." Bubbles almost yelled out. She slapped her own face and let out a sigh. "Okay, let me just try to be clear. When you look at Ben, do you get a funny feeling in your tummy?" Bunny hesitated. She gave it a thought and nodded. "Yeah, how do you know?" "That's because I think you like Ben in a more than a friend way." A silence between the two suddenly came up. Bunny's eyes flew wide before she then felt uneasy and looked away. "Well, I guess that is true. I guess I just have this feeling ever since he saved me. I mean, not only that, but he's so good looking and his courage was outstanding." Again she became silent as a smile then spread on her face. Then she spoke again. "This is awesome. I want to be with him." Bunny." Bubbles had a frown on her face. "Ben already has a girlfriend." "What's a girlfriend?" "Crud." Bubbles sighed. She felt like a mental knock in her brain. She replied her sister, "A girlfriend is a girl that is already in a relationship with a guy. But in a friendship way, it's a deep non-loving relationship between girls." "Oh. So what?" "It means that Ben can't be with you." "Why?" "Because he got a girlfriend." "So?" At this point Bubbles became silent. She wasn't the one to get hot-tempered, but the strain was getting hard to hold back. So she held that back and turned away. Bunny obviously saw she said something wrong because she suddenly appeared right in front of Bubbles. She held her sister back with an apologetic look. "All right, I get it, Bubbles. I'm sorry for questioning, but just hear me out." Bubbles came to a stop, deciding to listen. Bunny then continued, "It was Ben that decided to be with his girlfriend, right? Well, obviously he's free to leave her for me." "He is free to leave her for me then." "Bunny, that's rude." Bubbles yelled. The brown-haired girl felt hurt and looked away. "Oh well, I'm sorry. But I can't just get over him just because he has a girlfriend. This Danielle Fenton now has a rival for Ben's heart." Bubbles scowled. "How do you know her name?" I can read minds too." Bunny said with a shy laugh. "Sorry about that, Bubbles. But please keep the crush I have on Ben as a secret." It was really a surprise to know that not only is Bunny stronger than her and her other sisters, but she has powers that all three of them don't have. She gave Bunny's plea a thought, but was unsure to agree. Bunny had a somewhat childish mind, but Bubbles could also sense that she was just inexperienced. Then a thought came to her. "Hey! You better not be reading my mind." Bubbles yelled. "I'm not. Honest." Bunny said as she held her hands up to her chest. "Fine." Bubbles sighed. "Well, I'll keep it a secret, but only if you stop reading minds. It's wrong and will hurt you and someone else one day if you keep it up." "Okay. I promise, sis." "Okay. Now let's get going. Maybe Blossom and Buttercup are done arguing." Bunny nodded and made her way back to the way they got in. Bubbles had her eyes on her sister for a second, but then brushed any thought against her as she walked with her. Both girls got into a different discussion and had fun as they headed back. Things seems like it's about to heat up. Ben was face to face with Nefarious, a foe that he has been after since his adventures through different worlds. His eyes were still glaring at the villain, whom he hated so much. Nefarious didn't seem bothered by Ben at the very least. He held a metal spear in his hand. Finally Ben spoke as he held his hand up. "You caused my friend so much pain. I'm taking you down right here, right now." Just as the hero said that, his hand went down on the Omnitrix. He expected a flash and transformation, but came out with nothing. That's when it came to him why. "Gosh, I'm so stupid." He groaned as he facepalmed. He then removed his hand and held the Omnitrix to his face. Activate, code 10. Suddenly the Omnitrix brightened up and let out a huge flash of light. A powerful wind went all around the room, though Nefarious still managed to stand. The Omnitrix kept glowing brighter as it made a loud sound. It finally came to an end as the light died to its normal lightning. The faceplate pops up with an alien hologram up. Ben grew a smirk as he held his hand up. It's hero time. Slamming his hand down, the Omnitrix let out a flash of green light. It engulfed the hero's body in seconds and commenced the transformation. Nefarious stood and watched as the light then died down to reveal Ben's alien form. Now standing in Ben's place is a 12-foot-tall humanoid alien with brown thick skin, long tail and green eyes. The Omnitrix symbol was on his chest. Humongosaur. Ben bellowed loudly. Immediately he charged at the Nefarious with a fierce look. The villain stood in place with his hands now behind his back. Once Humongosaur came at him, he stepped aside and held his spear at the alien's foot. Humongosaur tripped and fell on the ground. He got up to his feet and turned back to the villain. Stop clowning around. Humongosaur yelled angrily. Nefarious said nothing but motioned his hand at the green-eyed alien. That enraged Humongosaur to charge at him again. But this time when he approached Nefarious, he threw a punch. Nefarious dodged it by ducking down and jumped back to avoid a swing punch from the alien hero. Humongosaur came at him fast and swung his tail at him, but Nefarious made a bigger jump backwards. Humongosaur growled through his teeth and struck both his hands down. The force of his strength sent a powerful shockwave that the metal ground made a wave at the villain. It came fast, but once Nefarious struck the ground it went back to normal. Humongosaur was taken aback but got over. He made a huge leap into the air and came down above Nefarious with his huge fist. Nefarious watched him coming and made another jump back, making it that Humongosaur hit the ground instead. A huge dent was made when Humongosaur hit the ground, though that didn't bother him. He turned at Nefarious. In an instant the alien hero swung his huge tail at the supervillain. It came at him fast, but Nefarious grabbed with both his hands. Before Humongosaur to react, he swung off his feet and hit the ground, a few feet away. He let out a groan as he was about to get up when suddenly Nefarious struck next. He struck the tip of his spear into the ground, sending a powerful blast through the ground. Humongosaur got hit instantly by the blast and was sent flying through a metal wall. A moment of silence took over while a dust cloud flooded the air. It began to clear away just enough to see a huge hole in the wall. Though Nefarious's eyes couldn't been seen, he was surely looking at the wall for a sign of Ben. He didn't have to wait long as a flash of green light came from the wall and diamond shards were shot at him. Quickly wielding his spear, Nefarious spun in a circle in front of him. That defense allowed him to deflect the attack, just in time to jump away from a barrage of diamonds that shot through the ground in front of him. He landed upside down on the bottom of a floating platform and looked down to see another alien walking through the hole. Ben's alien form was a silicon alien life form. His body is made up of pale green diamond and wore a uniform of black on the right half and white on the left half. The Omnitrix symbol was on the left side of his chest. Looking up, Ben held his hands to his side and made a huge leap up. His hands shot out a diamonds that helped launch him higher, as he came fast at Nefarious. The supervillain quickly jumped down, making Ben to miss. But as he landed on the ground he noticed a huge shadow casted over him. He quickly looked up and found the platform coming down on him with a hole at its side. Nefarious held his spear up and let out a red blast that destroyed it pieces. His attack formed a dust cloud that clouded his face, allowing Diamond Head to suddenly come down and swing a punch at him. Amazingly, Nefarious caught his hand and punched the hero at the face. Ben was sent flying a few feet back, but once he came to the ground he landed on his feet. "Nice punch," Diamond Head said. He touched his chin, "but let's see if you can handle all of this." Suddenly he held his hands at Nefarious and shot another rounds of diamond shards. Nefarious got into a sprint stance and ran at the attack. He twirled his spear on his sphere and began cutting the attacks away. Diamond Head quickly stopped and stomped his hand into the ground, sending huge diamond shards at the supervillain. Nefarious came to a stop. He saw the attack coming but only laughed at it. Holding his hand at the coming attack, he shouted, "Akamo Tedensha." His hand glowed and the diamonds themselves glowed pink. It glowed brighter before suddenly turning into dust. Diamond Head was surprised as his yellow eyes were wide open. "And no way." Diamond Head stammered, "You know magic." "I won't exactly call it that." Nefarious snickered. Taking advantage of the situation, Nefarious made a jump at Diamond Head and kicked him at the chest. Ben was sent into the air before hitting the ground hard. As Ben tried to get up, Nefarious suddenly rushed at him so fast that it seemed like he appeared in front of him. He held Ben by his chin and lifted him off the ground. Then he took off from the ground with Diamond Head right in front of him. Diamond Head found himself being rammed through platforms above him and Nefarious. He hurt him and weakened him, long enough for Nefarious to throw him into the air. Diamond Head screamed and continued as he began plummeting to the ground. Nefarious suddenly appeared below him and swung his spear to the right once the hero came, sending Diamond Head to crash into a huge column. The force of the hit was so much that the huge thing fell and exploded. Due to the explosion, a cloud of dust formed. Nefarious was a bit bothered by it, so he spun his spear like a fan which cleared the dust away. He was what was left and turned his back at it. "I guess it's over, such a shame really. I expected more from him." Nefarious then began to walk away, unaware of an invisible alien behind him, or so the alien thought. Once the alien got directly before him, Nefarious turned his head at him, "You can never sneak up on me, Tennyson." "Huh." Immediately Nefarious spun his body around and struck the tip of his spear at what looked like air. However, his spear actually hit the invisible alien and sent painful shocking electricity. The alien screamed so loud as he felt so much pain running through his body. The electricity froze his body in one place, though it made his body to shake rapidly. Finally Ben's invisibility was gone, revealing who he was. His current alien form was a humanoid alien that resembled a moth. He has 4 wings and antennae. Also his body was blue and black and he has 3 fingers and a pointed thumb, 2 toes on each foot and a 3rd toe-like extension on his ankles. The Omnitrix symbol was on his chest. Currently now Nefarious's spear was in Ben's chest, below the Omnitrix symbol. It sent more painful shocks which only made Nefarious to laugh as he began to gloat. "I admire what you tried to do, Tennyson, but clearly you haven't seen that you've met your match." As Nefarious said that, he increased the pain. Ben cried out louder as he felt like his whole body will explode. Nefarious only laughed, "Ah. Can you see what you're up against? Every time you've ruined my plans but not anymore. This will be your grave. Now beg for mercy. And never. So be it." Nefarious yelled the last part. Nefarious's spear increased power so much that it blasted Ben away. The young hero was sent hitting the wall before falling a few feet to the ground. The Omnitrix made an odd sound as smoke came from the alien device. It seems like it also took in damage, causing Ben to change back to normal. But even in his human form Ben could still feel the pain. His body felt so frozen and yet still shook as electrical lines sparked from different parts of his body. Nefarious took a good look at the beaten hero and proceeded towards him. "I'm fascinated you survived that blast. You should have been blown to pieces, so why didn't you?" He took a look at Ben, his lips changing to a grim, "I see. No matter. I'll finish you here, Tennyson." As he said that, he held his spear up and began to charge it up. "This will surely end the line for you." "And no." Ben shuddered. His body felt useless but he still managed to speak. It can't end like th this. "Yes it can." Ben let out a last gasp of air and fainted. It didn't really matter because in those few seconds Nefarious would end him. However, Ben began to have flashes of different events. He saw how he got the Omnitrix and then the summer adventures that followed. Through it all he kept his attention at how determined and willing he fought, especially during the event when the Omnitrix almost blew up. As memory went down he saw when he left home. It really hurt knowing that he would never see his family again. Even when he saw flashes of his adventures in Danny Phantom's universe it hurt even more. His girlfriend, Danny, and more other heroes and friends counted on him to beat Nefarious. He held the most powerful device in his own universe and yet he was done and almost out. "I can't lose, not now," his mind managed to whisper. Suddenly his eyes snapped open with them glowing pink. A pink aura covered him as he felt all the pain on his body go away. Suddenly he barked with all his energy, "I won't lose." The powerful energy surrounding Ben let out a huge spark. Nefarious didn't expect such power, hence he was thrown a few feet away. He managed to land on his feet, even though he skidded back a bit before coming to a stop. Ben got to his feet and cracked his knuckles. His body still had the strange pink aura, which was something Nefarious knew about. However, Ben didn't seem to notice the power he possesses. He had a sharp glare so deadly that even Vilgax would shudder in fear. "You don't get it, do you? You think I'm here to kick your butt just to be a hero? I don't care if I lose to you, but I certainly won't die when everyone is counting on me. You caused so much pain and suffering to my friends for all you've done. Even now I can hear their voices, they want me to stand and fight. So don't think for a second this is over." Though Nefarious's face couldn't be seen, it could be known that he was astonished. Nonetheless he took a bold stance and charged at Ben with a battle cry. His action didn't go unnoticed by the young hero, whose sudden power was just growing. By just watching Nefarious coming, Ben let out a loud cry which increased the pink energy around him. It became too much that it covered the entire room in seconds and Nefarious with it. Suddenly a huge explosion rocked the entire spaceship. It didn't go unnoticed by those in the ship. So back at the strange room, the entire place began to calm down. Ben fell on his knees as he panted heavily. The entire place was trashed. He managed to gather the strength to get up as he looked around him, the destruction he caused. Most of the lights in the large room were destroyed while some were just blinking. There were holes within the ceilings as some of its debris were either incinerated or were on the ground. The platforms and columns were either fallen or destroyed completely. Nonetheless, Ben was shocked at what he did. Then a groan was heard. Looking forward, Ben followed the groan. He had an idea who it came from, so he was cautious. He finally approached the groan and found Nefarious underneath a pile of debris. "Wow, I totally toasted him," Ben muttered to himself. Nefarious's groan came to an end once Ben spoke. He suddenly rose to his feet despite the debris, pushing them away. His cloak was completely ruined, revealing more of his skin. He picked up his spear before using it to rip the cloak off him. By doing that he was now fully exposed to the person he truly is. "Ha, and here I thought you couldn't be any uglier," Ben said, managing a little snicker. Nefarious let out a snarling sound. He didn't look much different from a human being. However, he did have small flesh-colored horns on his head and red eyes with black marks. He also has long black hair and wore a brown knee-length open-chested tunic. Baggy jeans and black calf-high. I let you live for too long, Tennyson. I won't make that mistake again." Suddenly he rushed at Ben and swats him away with his spear. Ben got hit hard and hit the metal ground hard as he tumbled uncontrollably. When he came to a stop he let out a groan and tiredly looked at Nefarious. The man was coming at with his weapon glowing. Ben gritted his teeth and mustered the strength to get up. He was really tired out, but he certainly wasn't going to go down without a fight. The Omnitrix let out its usual sound. Ben was a bit taken back as he had thought before that the watch was damaged. He eyed it closely and pressed the two top and bottom buttons. An alien hologram popped up, but Ben turned the dial as he searched for an ideal alien form. By this time Nefarious came in fight and did a mild jump at Ben. His spear was up to cast down on Ben. However, as Ben slammed the watch, he was engulfed in a green light. Nefarious got distracted by the sudden flash, which took him aback just as a human-like fist punched him right in the face. It was so powerful that he sent flying into the air. He stopped in the air though as he hovered and had his eyes on the teen hero. Now standing in Ben's place was an alien Nefarious had no knowledge of. In fact, it was hard to say if his current form was like any alien. It had the exact resemblance of a human being, though the power of his punch begged to differ. Nonetheless, Ben looked the same except he had pale green skin and he wore a green jumpsuit that has a black stripe that went all the way from the collar to his stomach, where it parted ways to the end of his feet. He also wore black fingerless gloves with green lines and black and green sneakers. He took a look at himself and smirked, cool. I forgot Starfire packed a lot. I wonder what I'll call this one. However, Ben didn't get the chance to think as a red energy blast hit him at the chest. It sent him hitting a metal wall before Nefarious appeared right in front of him and struck the spear at his chest. Unlike before, the weapon didn't go through the hero's chest due to the invulnerability it possessed. But that didn't stop Ben from feeling so much pain as red electric shock went through his body. As Nefarious weakened Ben, his spear increased its power. The young hero couldn't take the pain anymore. He held the spear with all the strength he could muster and sent an energy blast of his own. The result was an explosion that threw Nefarious to the ground and freeing Ben. He felt weak from the pain but managed to stay on his feet even though it was somewhat hard. The villain let out a groan as he tried getting up. Looking at his hand, he found that he only held half of his spear. The top part of the weapon was completely destroyed due to the explosion. He let out a growling sound as he threw the piece away and turned his attention to Ben. I've had enough of you, Tennyson. You're just as much of a nuisance as you were in the old timeline. Say what? Ben asked, confused at the last part. However, Nefarious didn't answer that. Rather, he stomps his hand to the metal ground and sent a huge flow of electricity at Ben. It came so fast that the young hero got caught by its current and screamed. Fortunate for him, the attack ceased, allowing Ben to fall to the ground weak. Nefarious then approached Ben causally. He had a scolding look on his face. For a long time you have been a pest, longer than what you think. Wah, what are you, ugh? Before Ben could finish, Nefarious had kicked him in the guts, causing him to skid on the ground. Nefarious continued, I went through great lengths to wipe our old timeline because of your meddling. Now once again you come to pester my very existence. As he said that, he picked Ben up by the air and punched him in the guts. Gregor, the former me, is dead. I am Nefarious, the one and only being that will wipe the multiverse of Ben Tennyson. Ben was already in so much pain. It didn't help that he couldn't understand all that Nefarious was saying. He didn't think of a way to break free due to the amount of pain he got. Nefarious then struck a strong punch at Ben that literally knocked the air out of him and sent him flying out of the villain's grip. Why won't you just die? Nefarious saw Ben still trying to get up. He then began to approach him again. I will kill you, Tennyson. After that, I'm gonna make them suffer. These humans and freaks you love and care about, I will take them all from you one by one. Suddenly Ben's head perked at Nefarious's direction. His eyes were glowing green as his teeth were gritted with an angry look on his face. You're a monster, Nefarious. Ben yelled out in anger. He hovered into the air, and I'm gonna stop you. Immediately, as both foes had eyes at each other, they flew at each other in a matter of seconds. Their collision such a large impact force that it tore through the floor and anything below in the massive ship. Nefarious was sent flying upwards to a ceiling and made a huge dent. He let out a groan as he tried to get ready when suddenly Ben flew at him with amazing speed and sent both him and the villain through. At another sector of the ship was a lab. Among these things were alien equipments that likely had other uses. The place was not abandoned though, as 3 aliens and a captured human were present. These aliens were Dr. Psychoboss, Kyber, and his dog. Currently their captive was in a glass pod that lay on the floor. Dr. Psychoboss was at a table working on a small chip. His ally, Kyber, just laid back at a wall and was talking furiously. For 2 years I've watched Tennyson and now I don't get to finish him off. That's enough, Kyber. Dr. Fiscobos said, irritated. He was still working on his little device. You failed to defeat the boy before. Even I wouldn't let you have the chance to beat the boy, and I do say myself loosely. Kyber snarled, shut it. One word out of you and I will have you fried like the earth crabs. Dr. Psychoboss said nothing. Whether it was out of fear or something else was not acknowledged. He just kept on working on his little device. The only thing to occupy that silence was his dog as it chewed on a bone. Then suddenly the whole place shook violently, knocking a few things down. Kyber almost fell, if not that he held on to something, however that couldn't be said for the evil alien scientist. What was that? Dr. Psychoboss asked as he got up. Tennyson. Kyber snarled, I don't care what Nefarious says, I'm going to complete my hunt whether he likes it or not. Come, Mutt, we got a prey to kill. Kyber's dog let out a growl and got up to her feet. Then both she and her MSTR ran out the door without a single word. Dr. Psychoboss sighed as he shook his head but said nothing. Instead he picked up his chip and looked at it. Excellent, now to try it on my unwilling test subject. As the evil alien scientist eyed his work, he felt someone tap him. That drew his attention as he turned around only to get kicked at the face. His small device fell to the ground while he was sent flying to the wall. He let out a groan and opened his eyes when he turned to the direction of the glass tube. It was broken with the water inside splashed everywhere. Footprints from the water led to the human who was previously captive. Currently he picked up square glasses from a hole protected by a glass casing. He put the glasses on and smiled. Ah, there we go. He said with a sigh. Hey you. Dr. Psychoboss shouted as he got up, don't you dare move. As he said that, the top of head opened to reveal his huge brain, which was sparking electricity. The captive said nothing and held his hand up. He didn't turn his body to the alien, but once he did he made a sprint at him. That provoked Dr. Psychoboss to shoot a blast at him. However, the boy jumped to the right, near the glass pod he used to be. Dr. Psychoboss shot another blast at him, which the boy again avoided as he jumped away. His blast instead hit the pod, causing the remaining water within to splash around and on his brain. That caused a very shocking experience for the mad scientist as he screamed. The boy took the chance and sprinted towards him. Once he was close he did a roundhouse kick that sent Dr. Psychoboss flying to the wall and knocking him unconscious in the process. The boy removed his attention from the unconscious mad scientist and went to find a coat rack. There he saw his lab coat, which he then wore over the rest of his clothes. By now it is easily known that the boy is Dexter. I'm fortunate that Quake broke me free before that control chip could be used on me. Now to meet Benjamin and finish the job. Having said that, Dexter rushed out of the lab. Currently at the control room, things were running well. They were operators working on a lot of computers which functioned on many things in the ship. Guards were also stationed at each side of the room. Not only was that, but there is a huge view right in front of them, which was protected by a huge glass. Lastly, there was a high level which had a chair specifically for Nefarious. However, the normalcy in the room was interrupted when the ground shook. Someone shot out right through the floor and crashed right through Nefarious's chair. Commotion soon arose as the operatives directed their attention to the place, fearing for the worse. To their most shock it was Nefarious himself as he now lay on the pieces of his chair. The guards quickly formed around Nefarious and prevented anyone from getting through. A large hole had been formed on the floor, from Nefarious crashing through. Another being rose from the giant hole and hovered in the air with its eyes glowing neon green. Shoot him down, commanded one of the guards. Immediately the guards opened fire at the being. More guards flooded into the large room through various doors and fired their weapons at the being. The alien screamed in pain as it felt hit with everything. Soon it fell to the ground, crashing through a few station computers. A silence then took over the room as several guards cautiously approached him. At a close look the person could be identified as BEN10. His current form was a Tamiran, which might have explained why he beat Nefarious. Even though he was beaten, Ben became conscious rather too quick. His body's aura became bright pink as his eyes matched the same color. Next his body began to move like wildfire. The guards quickly armed their weapons to fire and pointed it at the teen hero. However, they found their weapons fly out of their hands. Ben rose from the ground, with the guns following him. Next he held his hand forward, down at the guards, making their own weapons turn against them. "You might want to start running," Ben said, his voice sounding enhanced. No one in the room needed to be told twice. The guards and operatives quickly ran in panic as they wished to protect their lives. Even the guards protecting Nefarious ran off, leaving the unconscious being by himself. At this point he began to slowly regain unconsciousness due to the loud noises of people screaming. Then the sudden sounds of gunfire caught his attention fully. Getting up, he found his whole staff was running away. He looked forward and found Ben shooting down on them while letting out a gleeful laughter. Something was definitely wrong at the young hero. Even though none of the hero's shots hit anyone, he just seems to be having fun with it. Nefarious knew why, but he didn't care. Nefarious stretched his hands forward and made them glow pink. Then he shouted, "In Thena Kokestion Emalea." Suddenly Ben found himself trapped in a square box. His control on the guns was nullified, causing them to fall to the ground. Every guard and operative had left the place safely, leaving only Ben and Nefarious alone. "Explode!" Nefarious cried out loud. The pink box glowed so bright and exploded so violently. A dust cloud had been formed due to it, and Nefarious began to laugh. Nothing could survive that. I should have done this before. Ha ha ha, now you're dead. Not so fast. Ben's voice was heard coolly. The dust cloud disappeared. Ben still hovered in the air like nothing happened, except now he had a grin. "No, it's not possible." "It totally is possible," Ben remarked. He stretched his hand at Nefarious and sent a huge electric blast at him. Nefarious tried blocking it as he created a pink dome shield over him. However, it broke easily as the blast made contact and hit him. Suddenly the electric blast formed into more of chains as it wrapped around Nefarious. Next, the supervillain was lifted right into the air, in front of Ben. As the young hero was about to say something, the doors suddenly slide open to reveal Kyber and his dog coming in. "Ben10, we meet," Kyber began to say, but stop. He felt his heart stop a bit as his eyes had a good look at Ben. "No, it can't be." At that precise moment Dexter rushed in through another door. Despite that Kyber had left the lab before Ben, he was able to get the information he needed from a computer. Strangely, it was easy due to the commotion now arising within all sectors of the ship. So now he was present to witness Ben in a different form he didn't know of. "A nanodite?" Kyber managed to say despite his fear. Ben didn't say anything at him. Instead he just had his hand at the hunter's direction. An invisible force pushed Kyber and his dog out and also caused the whole door to be caved in. Ben then chuckled, "Good, now we have no one to interrupt us." "Ben. I spoke too soon." Ben let out a disappointed groan. He responded by turning to Dexter, who had called him. "What do you want?" "Let's go now. I have what we came for." "So?" Ben asked without a care. Earlier when Dexter had gone missing he had shown worry and fear for him. But now he didn't show any sympathy or anything that reminded Dexter of the boy he had observed for a while. Ben continued, "I feel so incredible than any alien I've ever been. Feedback and automix can never come close to the power I feel now. With this I can take out any villain that comes my way. Now look who I have at my mercy. What's the point of that information when I can kill the man responsible for everything? That's enough." Dexter barked at him angrily, if you're to take him down then do it the noble and hero's way. I think otherwise. Ben said back and let out a fit of laughter. Suddenly the young hero shot a huge pink blast at him. The boy genius reacted quickly as he took out a grappling gun and shot a hook at the ceiling. Then he swung off the platform he stood just before it got destroyed. Ben eyed the grappling hook and snickered, oopsie. The grappling hook suddenly disappeared, causing Dexter to fall. Fortunately he landed on the ground safely by his feet and turned at Ben. He bent down, pressed a button at the side of his shoes, and made a huge leap at Ben. As he drew close he held a pen-like device in his hand and threw at Ben. It went unaware by Ben as he swats his hand at the boy genius, sending him to hit the ground. Is that all you got, geek? No, Dexter let out a groan as he got up, this is. The pen flew at the Omnitrix symbol and opened up. It clasped at it and did something to it that the symbol began to spark. When it seems that something was going to happen, the device exploded into dust, revealing the Omnitrix's face to be glowing pink now. Dexter was baffled, but that should have changed you back. I see what you did. Ben said, of course you'll have a plan in case I do something off. I don't know why but I'm still better than ever. That's because you're not a Tamiran. A female voice said. Both Ben and Dexter turned their attention to the same direction. Blackfire hovered in the air, her hands glowing purple. She continued to speak, Kyber told me what you are, Tennyson. That power you possess is not from my people. Ben became silent as he was deadpanned. But then he stretched his hand at her and smirked, Mihei. Blackfire quickly shot blackbots at Ben. They hit the powerful hero but did nothing on his appearance. Ben only laughed before letting out a blast of his own at the villainess. The girl quickly flew aside just in time to avoid getting hit by the huge blast. So instead the blast went through the metal wall and several other walls before breaching out of the spaceship itself. Blackfire looked through the hole and was shocked. She quickly went back to Ben, Madam Rogue, now. Huh. Suddenly MDM Rogue appeared on the floor. She stretched her hand at Nefarious and grabbed him as her hand grew to his size. Fortunately her RBB skin and suit was enough to nullify the electricity. She then held him close and pressed a bracelet on her wrist and they were both gone in a flash of light. Blackfire did the same and was gone as well. No. Ben cried out in anger. His level of power increased so much that Dexter could feel it. The entire room began to tear apart, which got the boy genius to leave. Ben didn't seem to be paying any attention to him, so it was as good time to escape before he destroys the whole ship. He jumped right through the huge seek-through glass and found himself plummeting. Reaching to his wrist communicator, he shouted, Computer, I need your assistance. Suddenly Dexter's jet arrived right below him. The top of it opened, allowing Dexter to fall right in safely. However the danger was far from over as Dexter got up to his feet quickly. He ran to the controls and shouted, Get us out of here fast. The ship obeyed and flew off as far away from Nefarious's ship. Just from afar it became easy to spot the giant ship due to its camouflage failing. Dexter looked back and saw that different parts of the ship were exploding. Then suddenly it burst into flames so bad that most of its remains were burnt. He whispered to himself, well at least the mutant army is dead I hope. Taking back controls of the ship, he directed his jet back. There was a huge black dust cloud that was left of the Dime's Eye on Doomsday. Dexter had a thought about Ben and feared for the worse. Even though the boy almost killed him, Dexter had some remorse for him. Besides he didn't want an overpowerful being like Ben to be loose from his sights. When it almost came to Dexter's mind that Ben was gone he heard a beep. His radar suddenly picked up something falling out of the dust cloud. Dexter quickly directed his space jet below the dust cloud and saw Ben in his human form falling. The boy genius flew as fast as his jet could and got below Ben. The top of the jet opened and Ben fell in but this time a bed came out and cushioned his fall. Dexter let out a sigh of relief. He skeptically looked at Ben and found that the teen was unconscious. A lot of things ran through his mind, but for now he knew that both he and Ben needed rest. Hopefully he won't go power crazy on him when he wakes up. So with all that has happened, Dexter flew his jet off to the direction of his laboratory, unaware that he and Ben were being watched. And that concludes all we could see. A group of high officials sat around half of a huge circle table. The only lightning was the round table and a huge screen in front of it. The screen went off for a second but then came back on as it showed a picture of Ben about to slam the watch down. Suddenly Number 1 emerged from the darkness and stood before the table. He then spoke, "I believe it's time the kids next door act fast. Upon all the teenagers we've faced, Ben Tennyson has proven to be too dangerous. Not only did he destroy the ship but he—" "Can you just stop talking?" shouted a female voice that was clearly irritated. A light came on above the female who spoke, revealing it to be number 86. She had an irritated face as she rubbed her forehead. "You boys and all talking is really getting on my nerves." "That's enough, number 86. Again, another light came on. This time it was number 362. She snarled at the other girl, "Now be quiet and let number 1 speak." "Fine." Number 86 replied and slouched on her chair. Another light came on, above another person. This person turned out to be an American African boy dressed in a black tuxedo and red bow tie. He had sunglasses on. "I agree, though not in harsh terms," the boy said and continued, "As number infinity, I say we instead consider if by any chance Ben Tennyson can be of good use." "Good use? Ha! Never can happen." The last person present finally revealed himself. He wore a lab coat, had brown shaggy hair and wore braces. He then spoke up, "That device he wears is too dangerous for any teenagers to use. You saw what happened at Nefarious's ship. This Omnitrix should be taken and locked away for safety. This doesn't matter if he is good or evil. We can't risk it. Number 74.239 is right." Number Infinity acknowledged with a nod, "What is your say in this, Supreme Leader?" Number 362 gave a thought about it. "She has to be cautious of what she will be putting herself and the whole Kids Next Door organization into. Ben is indeed powerful and is a teenage. Ever since number 1 had stolen information from Nefarious's ship they have been watching on Ben. Now that they have seen all that they could, it came down to number 362's decision. I say we bring him in," she finally said. "Very well." Number 74.239 smirked, "And since his Omnitrix can't be removed, I have a new toy for Ben Tennyson." Whatever that number 74.239 meant was kept to only those who knew what he meant. For now it didn't matter. It is made very clear that the kids next door are now against Ben 10. The sun started to set as it was almost at the horizon. The city of Townsville was still lively in its normal activities with no interruption. Nobody had taken notice about an explosion above them, which wasn't much to say. Speaking of that, a certain teen had recovered from the shock of the event that had occurred. That teen was none other than Ben Tennyson. Some hours had passed before Dexter had taken Ben back to the Powerpuff Girls. The girls were initially shocked to see a beaten-up Ben Tennyson, but after a while they had him rest. Then after that Dexter told them what happened. Ben managed to hear it all and ran off to the top of the house. They noticed his absence when they heard his footsteps but were held back by Dexter. "He needs time," the boy genius said. The wind blew blissfully at Ben's hair. The teen stared aimlessly to the direction of the city and paid no attention at the sight. His thoughts were on what had happened hours ago. It was really shocking that he had such power. He knew very well that such a power didn't come from the Tamiran form. Besides, Dexter mentioned Kyber called him an Anodite. Ben would have gone on with his thoughts if not that he heard someone. "So how long till you come back in?" The Omnitrix wearer looked back and saw Bunny standing a few feet behind. He said nothing to her and turned his head back. Bunny frowned, but suddenly her smile grew as her eyes turned into hearts. When she looks at Ben, the background was so shining and Ben's hair blew by the air so good. That was enough to make her shriek in excitement. Huh? Ben heard her and looked back. Bunny quickly punched her own on face, which retuned back to a normal smiling face. When Ben saw her, he didn't suspect a single thing about her. Was that you? The teenage boy asked. What? No. No. Bunny said back calmly. Oh, okay. A silence came between the two. All they did was just stare at each other until Ben turned back. Bunny sighed and walked to his side. It was so tempting to put her head on his shoulder, but she couldn't. Instead, she just placed her hand on his shoulder and spoke. I get it. What happened is really HRD on you. But I just want you to know that you're not alone in this. You can always talk to me when you want. I'm here for you. After saying that, Bunny turned away and walked. Ben still stood still for a while as he thought through what Bunny said. He opened his mouth and turned back just in time to see her walking away. Bunny. He called to her. Yes, Ben. Bunny responded and turned back. I just want to say thanks. That means a lot. No problem. Another silence came between the two. Bunny sent a small warming smile and allowed her feet to go off the ground. She floated to the edge of the top and sat down and looked up at Ben. Maybe you should take a sit. Ben smiled back, sure thing. The brown-haired hero sat next to her. Together, both teens looked at the sun going down. Bunny let out a happy sigh. Wow, the sun looks so appealing when it is setting down. This is my first time seeing it. Yeah, I know. The rest of the time was spent by watching the sun going over the horizon. Ben didn't know or even have a clue that Bunny had her arm around him and her head on his shoulder. The girl held back the urge to let out a sigh as she and Ben kept looking at the sunset. Another day came up, but with something interesting. The Powerpuff Girls, Ben and Dexter, could be spotted chasing a lone figure that was running from them. The teen genius was on his jet above the city. From that angle he could spot where the figure was running. He told the Powerpuff Girls through a Bluetooth connection of where the person was heading to. At the meantime, the figure turned out to be Kyber. The hunter was on the run, after being spotted spying on Ben. He was good at evading the girls since he was an expert at hunting. His only way to escape was to head to an abandoned harbor at the edge of Townsville, or so that's what the heroes thought. Suddenly 4 familiar colors stomped the ground right in front of him. The Powerpuff Girls stood before him. Surrender, Kyber. Blossom warned him with a glare. The alien hunter refused as he drew out a weapon. It was a sniper-like gun, but looked alien as well. Buttercup snickered, really? A gun? Do you really expect to hurt us? No. Kyber simply said calmly as he pointed the gun at them. Suddenly he shot a red beam at their feet, which exploded the ground. Dust particles flew to the girls, causing them to cough hysterically as the dust prevented them from seeing. Kyber took that opportunity to jump into the hole he made and continue his run in the sewers. The dust cloud cleared right away and the girls could see he was gone. He escaped. Bunny said. Not for long. Another voice said, but not from the girls. A red blur flew right into the sewers and chased after the hunter. It turned out that the red blur was actually Ben as Jetray. The hero spotted Kyber at a dead end as he began placing what could be considered as detonators. Ben touched the ground and changed back to normal. It's over, Kyber. I won't let you escape. When Ben thought he was in the upper hand, his face dropped as Kyber laughed. The hunter turned to him and smirked devilishly. On the contrary, boy, it's you that won't escape. Suddenly the detonator glowed. They were small metal boxes which were put in a circle. As it glowed, they formed a circle of blue energy that Ben could easily tell was a portal. The teen hero quickly realized what was happening and tried walking away. Unfortunately it was too late. The portal's energy keyed into Ben's heat signature and shot out some energy cables around him. Ben found his arms, legs and stomach wrapped around him. He tried going to the Omnitrix, but the cables held his arms far apart. At this point he was already getting close into the boy. He let out a scream as a last attempt to be saved. His voice didn't go unheard as the Powerpuff arrived, but it was too late. The portal began to close once it had taken the hero. Bunny and her sisters quickly flew at the closing portal, but only one got through it. The rest only hit a plain wall. Kyber only laughed as he began to walk away. The rest of the girls got up and glared at the hunter. Buttercup snapped into anger and flew at the hunter. She got in front of him in a fast blur and hit him on the sewer wall. Where is he? Blossom and Bubbles rushed to their sister's side, both charging up their energy beams. Kyber stopped laughing, but he still kept his smirk. I sent him somewhere. Once he said that, he disappeared right in front of their eyes. The girls could only see a plain wall. Buttercup seems the most furious as she tried bottling up her anger. However, it was futile. She let out a loud angry voice and punched the sewer wall. That single punch was so powerful that it shook the wall of Townsville. Ugh, what happened? You're asking me? Bunny's voice said in a happy tone. Ben quickly shot his eyes wide open and leapt into the air with a shriek. Bunny ended on lying on the ground, due to lying on Ben earlier. The Powerpuff realized what just happened and pretended to let out a yawn as she saw him stand on the ground. What happened? Bunny asked. Though a little creeped out by Bunny, he got over the feeling as he looked around. I don't know. His eyes went on a signboard and became wide-eyed. It can't be. But it really is. Amity Park. Bunny finished as she saw the board too. The board was written, Welcome to Amity Park, home of the ghost hero, Danny Phantom. After a while Ben and Bunny were walking through the town. Ben really wished he had a hoodie to hide his face, he didn't want to be seen. Some people were giving him skeptic looks as he and Bunny passed by. The last time he was in the dimension, the people knew about him. So far no one could identify him. Despite being gone for a long time, Ben could still tell where to go. Bunny and Ben talked by the meantime until they got to the front of the Nasty Burger. Before they got there, Bunny asked Ben about the town. She pretended like she didn't know much about town or the people he met. The two teens were about to head into the restaurant when suddenly Bunny grabbed Ben's wrist. The brown-haired hero turned to her and asked, What the heck, Bunny? I hear screaming. Bunny told him. Before Ben could say anything, the girl flew off while holding him. Both of them arrived at Casper High and found students running out of the school. Bunny landed near a bush and let go of Ben. Both teens could hear the screams and quickly sprinted into the building. A lot of teens were stampeding through the entrance. It wasn't easy for Ben to get through, but for Bunny it was as she flew above. Eventually both teens arrived at the computer room just in time to see the mayhem. There was computers glowing, hovering and spinning around in the air. The source of the strange phenomena was coming from a ghost Ben recognized on sight. The ghost had a green flaming head and another face with sunglasses at its tummy. The ghost also wore a metal body with green circuits and black gauntlet. Lastly was his green spectral tail and tentacle-like mechanical hands holding 4 teens. Among those teens were Paulina, Dash, an Asian kid Ben didn't know about, and Star. The ghost laughed hysterically with his arms in the air as the teens screamed in terror. Paulina noticed Ben and smiled widely. Yay, the changing boy is here. Ben slumped his shoulders with an offensive look. Changing boy? That's the name I get when I left this dimension. The other teens also noticed Ben and cheered for him. It caught the ghost's attention, whose faces then turned their attention to Ben and gasped in shock. BEN10. Ah, finally someone gets it right. Ben let a small smirk. He stood straight and had his hand working on the Omnitrix while facing the ghost. "I guess I get to kick your butt, Skullboop." The upper head laughed while the bottom face snarled. "It's Skulltech, you moron. And stop laughing." The bottom face yelled angrily. "Whatever. It's hero time." Once Ben said that, he slammed his hand down on the watch. Immediately he was engulfed in a flash of green light. Skulltech and the captured teens had to cover their eyes until the light died down. When their eyes went back to the hero, they found him in a strange alien form. Ben's current alien form seems to be an alien that resembled close to an ape. The only huge difference was the fact that his entire body was made of Lego blocks with red, blue and yellow colors. He has green eyes and the Omnitrix symbol rested on his chest. "Blulu!" the alien cried out. Bunny admired Ben's alien form, but quickly got to action. She shot laser beams from her eyes and hit all the mechanical hands. Skulltech cried out in pain as the teens were freed. They cheered once again and ran out of the room, leaving Ben and Bunny to deal with the ghost. Blocks shot both his hands forward and made a grab for Skulltech. His body stretched due to the ability of the alien. He would have grabbed the ghost, but he became intangible. Blocks drew back his hands to himself. "I forgot he can do that. Let me handle this," Bunny said quickly and flew at the ghost. However, upon getting close, Skulltech became intangible again. Bunny flew right through him and ended up ramming through a wall. Skulltech became tangible again and laughed at Bunny's failed attempt. Block snarled and let out a battle cry as both his hands formed into block cannons and shot Lego blocks at him. Skulltech got caught off guard and were forced a few feet back. They managed to get over the attack just in time for blocks to jump at them and form into a ball. Both Skulker and Technus pouted, "Ah, poop." Immediately they got hit by the face and were sent flying to a wall at the back. They made a huge crack on the wall upon impact. However, they still managed to get back to the air. Together the villains' faces spoke, "We won't go down that easily, Tennyson. You can't surprise us anymore, for we are Skulltech, super combination of genius and bronze. Nothing within your alien will be able to dash. Do you ever stop talking?" Block said with a plain face. "What did you say?" Block smirked a bit as he pointed above him. The ghost looked and saw Bunny heading towards them. She came in so fast that she hit them in a matter of a blink of the eye. Both their body flew right through the wall and broke through other classes. Eventually they broke through the basketball court's wall and smashed right through the hoop before hitting the ground. Skulltech let out a groan as they attempted to get up. A loud female battle cry made them to snap into full attention and become intangible. Bunny arrived at that moment and stomped on the ground that the ghost laid. However, since they were intangible, she just hit the ground and made a huge hole. Skulltech flew into the air and sent one of their mechanical arms to grab her. Bunny got caught by surprise and was lifted into the air. Suddenly tons of volts of electricity shot right into the Powerpuff Girl. She let out a loud scream of pain, but didn't submit to it that easily. Bunny bit her lip and grabs hold of the thing holding her. She began squeezing on it and almost broke right through it. Skulltech reacted quickly and sent 3 others at her. Bunny cried out louder in pain, but yet the girl didn't seem to give up. Her eyes suddenly became bloody red before she let out a huge red beams. Skulltech got hit at the chest and cried out in pain as they were flung to the basketball net. Bunny felt mildly weak and fell to the ground. Surges of electricity sparked through her body, but amazingly she managed to get up. She let her eyes sight Skulltech hanging on the net and growled. At this point blocks arrived through the hole in the wall and landed on the ground just in time to witness something. Bunny brought her hands almost together. A small purple energy ball formed in the space between them and began to grow. The Powerpuff let out a battle cry as she kept charging it up until she shot both her hands forward and realized a huge energy blast. Before Skulltech could even recover from the previous attack, they got hit so bad that they were blown right through the net and the ceiling itself. In fact, they were shot up into the air so much that their body couldn't be seen from afar. Bunny panted tiredly and fell on her knees. Some part of her hair got to her face, but they were shifted back by Blocks, who now stood before her. The familiar timeout sound came up and Ben was changed back to normal in a flash of green light. The brown hair boy got on one knee and held the Powerpuff Girl's chin with a worried face. "Are you alright, Bunny?" he asked. Bunny sighed in a dreamy tone and rose her head up at him. "Yeah, I'm good." Before the two heroes could go on with anything, someone flew above them. The person's shadow casted above them and the person spoke in a familiar girl's voice. "You two better explain what just happened here or else someone is gonna get their butt kicked." Ben laughed a bit and turned back. "Well, hello to you too, Valerie." "Ben?" the female said in shock. The female wore a red and black metal suit with a mechanical hovering glider under her feet. Her face became revealed to be Valerie, who now had a shock face. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 4. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and Man of Cartoons on fanfiction.net. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.